Welcome to the Roundtable Podcast. I'm your host, Antonio Bushell. This is the Roundtable Podcast, Popup, where I come on. Normally you will see it's four of us. Lovely T, Lady B, RW3, and myself. We come on every Sunday at 4:30. But today, we also have something where I just do a pop-up just to talk about what's going on. There may be something that can't wait till Sunday to post, but we just decided we'll do it now. And that's what I'm doing here. We have so much to talk about. Guys, listen, before we do, please like and share this page. Please like and share this post, this podcast. Even go to our YouTube page. Go to our YouTube page. You see the link below the screen. Go to that YouTube page. We want you to like. We want you to subscribe there. So we want you to do a couple of things on our YouTube page. We want you to like it. We want you to subscribe to it. We want you to share it. Definitely. I'm just trying to make sure that everything is going good with this audio here. But anyway, guys, listen. That's what we want you to do. Like and subscribe. I can't even talk today. Like and subscribe on our YouTube page. Share and like on our Facebook page. And go to our website. On Sundays, we do go live on our website, and that's below the screen. So let's get into it. It's so much going on out here, even to how everything have gotten to be so sensitive in terms of even what we post. Now you can't say so much. You can't do anything. That's what it sounds like. We can't say anything. Our words are being just canned or squashed. And especially if we're not saying anything that's causing harm. I think it should just be re-looked at and say, okay, well, at least they're not speaking about hate. Then it should be able to be posted. But that's a whole nother thing. But guys, listen, it's things that's going on all over the world. It seemed like since this George Floyd incident or death happened or murder happened, a lot of and these things have been going on for a long time. But now, they're shining the light and doing arrest on police officers, right? So we've seen a lot of different cops are saying different. I mean, you just see the racism. And I'm not saying every cop is a racist cop, but I am saying it is a light that's been shined on. That's been shined in a dark place. It hasn't really been dark for Black people, but just it's something that's going on. Okay, so a lot of cops are really being put. Well, that cape is coming on, that invisible cape. You can see it now. I'm talking about the hooding, the head cape, the hood, whatever you call it. That is some light being shined on. But see, here's the thing, right? I wanted to talk about this leader. I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna play a video, and I want you guys to watch this video, and then we'll go in here. We'll talk. I'm gonna play it in different pieces, but I want you to listen to what's going on about this. I guess this new elected. He's a union leader, and how he feels about systemic racism, because he doesn't believe that systemic racism actually exists within his police division, at least what he works at. I don't think he does. He don't believe that systemic racism exists, period. But listen to what he's saying. So check the video out.
We're in a pandemic. We're in the midst of calls for reform, scrutiny on police. What do you think that's been like for your officers?
Demoralizing, to say the least.
John Catanzara is the newly elected leader of Chicago's Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 7, the union that represents about 13,000 Chicago rank-and-file police officers and sergeants. Can you see the protesters' points at all about needing reform?
I don't like the word reform. Reform, it has a connotation of there's major systemic problems.
You don't think that there's a systemic problem with racism in your police force?
Again, no, because if I literally saw officers who I thought were policing.
Guys, listen, this is the problem. This is the problem, that this leader, this union leader over so many police officers, this guy, they represent the police department, so obviously he's not going to say anything bad about policing, and I get that. But see, my problem is the fact that, these are the things that exist within this institutional belief system. Racism, if you don't know what I'm saying, racism. Guys like this guy who hides behind a false reality, who can't understand that systemic racism would exist, and especially not within their police department. And he makes another statement that I want to get to, but I mean, this is what I'm talking about. This is what makes it dangerous. What? Systemic racism, because it's guys like him who is in position. I don't know what position in terms of, as far as putting somebody and firing them, did he have that type of ability? But I'm saying, if these guys that hold leadership positions, like I talked on my last podcast, I got to pull the other guy's name up. Maybe I'll pull it up in the video. He's another one who didn't believe in systemic race or believe that it still exists. It's these guys that makes it even more dangerous, because you're saying it doesn't exist. Or are you in denial? To not believe and to say, I don't want to, we shouldn't say, what this guy say? He said so much, but let me, I want to show you. Okay, so here's the thing. This is the other piece, guys. Let's go back to what he said. And look how he says it. I'm going to take it back some. Listen to the video.
Again, no, because if I literally saw officers who I thought were policing based solely on race, then I would say yes, but that's not been the case.
Do you hear what this guy says? He says that if he believed that these cops were policing based on racism, he said he's never seen that, but he would understand if he's seen it. I mean, whatever. But look what he's saying. He's saying based on racism. Who's going to tell you that they're policing based on racism? And how would you know? Because wouldn't they want to keep that a secret? Wouldn't they want to keep that a secret? But I mean, you're saying, see, that's the other part to this. You're saying that you don't believe that none of those police officers, especially, and I'm not saying anything, especially in Chicago. Come on. Especially in Chicago. Guys, I believe there's so much systemic racism running into Chicago Police Department. It's probably just crazy. And like I said, I'm not pushing anything bad. I mean, it's just call a spade in this situation. You know that systemic racism exists in the police department. See, and see, here's the other thing. We can't heal as a nation unless we address these issues. You have to come from hiding behind your jobs or anything. I mean, you know that this exists. You know that systemic racism exists. And for you to say that it doesn't, it just, to me, make the problem worse. It makes the problem worse because you don't want to see that you know it exists. You just don't want to see it. And then even when he said that if he knew police officers that police based on being racist, then he will address that situation. I mean, how that was very crazy to even make that type of statement. You know, I mean, what you obviously they don't police based solely on race because they don't meet all black people. If they are policing, they might run into some white people or whatever. You know what I mean? So obviously they're not policing based on just being racist, but that doesn't mean they're not racist. That doesn't mean that whatsoever. And this is the thing. You think, how can this gentleman, how can he even form in his head to even think that racism doesn't exist? I mean, within the police department, in your police department, or he would say, well, I didn't say it didn't exist. I said, I just haven't seen it. Well, I think you've been blind. I think you've been blind. And then it show you that maybe you don't need that job because, for one, you can't even sympathize. You only see what you want to see, so I don't know, guys. It's crazy, the abuse that these people who are in position play. That is abuse to me. It's abuse if you don't acknowledge that the problem exists. It's almost like a parent who's doing something illegal to a child within the home, and the other parent knows and just take a side eye to it, don't really pay attention to it. You know what I mean? It's almost like that, where to me, those people who don't believe that their departments are racist, or some people are racist within their department, as well as I don't believe that systemic racism exists. Those are the same people to me that are allowing this situation to happen and standing by. They're standing by and allowing these situations to happen, and they're deciding not to even look at it. You know what I mean? Because if you say you don't believe systemic racism exists, you're deciding not to look at it, even when you see it happen. And to me, that becomes a problem. Guys, it's so much. There's another, and even the chief, Chicago chief, Lord, what was it, Lightfoot? I don't believe. I don't want to say the wrong thing out her name, but let's look at. I'm gonna show you. Okay, now listen to what the chief says. Let's play. Okay, I'm gonna start it here, guys. But I want you guys to take a look at this. This is the chief police for Chicago.
Communities and police trust each other, not fear each other.
Catanzaro doesn't think that there's systemic racism in the system.
Then he's got his head in the sand. I mean, anybody of goodwill of a certain age recognizes that many institutions have systemic racism as part of them. And unfortunately, the police department is no different.
Police unions have a lot of power because of their contracts, particularly in Chicago, where historically any potential reforms are negotiated into a new contract before being implemented.
They blocked.
See, guys, so here's the chief saying that, he have his head in the sand. Systemic race, that's make the problem even bigger. When there's people in leadership who don't or decide to take a back seat or turn ahead to a certain situation, I think they need to be looked at. I think they need to be looked at and to see, okay, well, who are you? Who are you? Because you sounding like you a little bit on the left, to take a side, to don't even want to believe that this thing exists. And here's the chief of police, she's still a police officer, and here she's saying that, you got your head in your head in the sand, buddy. If you don't believe that this systemic racism flows throughout departments, and so what am I saying? I'm saying if you're going to get rid of the problem, you have to dig out the root. You're going to have to go down deep and dig it out. And it starts with systemic racism, some institutionalized hatred that took over and infested a whole government, a whole society, and if you don't dig that out, then you'll never get rid of the problem. If you don't dig out this old behavior, this old way of thinking, guys, listen, I'm telling you, the problem is that's how you deal with it. That's how you deal with it. But this guy, this is what we're up against, and there's people who know that it does exist. But guys, I want to talk about this other article and that was still here, and I'm prepping it now because, guys, this was just terrible. I guess it was 3 police officers that had been reported that, you know how they have the body cams on. I guess there's some type of recorder. Obviously, I didn't know that you could push them separately, but maybe whatever happened, they were recorded mistakenly. So they say, and they were saying some very, just crazy remarks, racist remarks about the chief of police, who happened to be a black police officer. I think he's newly hired in. But guys, I want you to hear this. I got it prepped here. So guys, check this out. Check this video. Guys, I'm going to back it up because I'm going to make sure that no one can say, oh, well, we didn't hear it in the full.
3 Wilmington, North Carolina police officers fired for racist comments that they made on the job. NBC News correspondent Blaine Alexander joining me now. Blaine, if I'm correct here, a patrol car camera actually recorded this conversation. What did the officers say, and who first discovered that video?
Allison, this really is a rather disturbing story. So these recordings were apparently made by accident. They took place over the course of a couple of hours or so on the patrol car camera of one of the officers. And this was actually discovered earlier this month during what's a routine kind of audit of the audio of those cameras. So another officer was listening to them, and found 3 officers, conversations at different points between 3 officers using racial slurs, the N-word at sometimes, speaking negatively about the police chief, who's African-American, other black officers on the force. At one point, one officer complained that during the protests surrounding the death of George Floyd, saying that the department's only interest was kneeling down with black folks, used a racial slur to describe a magistrate judge. At one point, things kind of really escalated when an officer said that he believed a civil war was coming and that he was ready, adding, quote, "We are going to be able to go out and start slaughtering them effing N-words," of course, using a lot of expletives there. Another officer said, "I'm not going to do that." And the guy says, "Well, I'm ready and I can't wait." And so all of these things were kind of revealed earlier this month when, of course, it was brought to the attention of the chief. He immediately terminated them. But when they were confronted about this, Alice, and this was interesting, none of the officers denied it. All 3 of them said, yes, that's our voice. They didn't deny any of it. But they said that they weren't racist and said they were chalking it up to what they called the stress of the current environment, and said that they were simply venting. Allison.
Wow. Blaine, you've said that the 3 officers were fired. Is the department, the city, doing anything else or looking into this further beyond firing them?
So a couple of things they're doing. The chief said that he is trying to make sure, he's recommending that they don't get rehired anywhere else as law enforcement in any other department, any other jurisdiction. So he's kind of notifying the state board about that and about their behavior. In addition to that, Allison, the district attorney for that area is going back and reviewing all of the cases where those 3 officers were involved, where they took any sort of action or anything, to see if in those cases there was.
Okay, guys, I know that was a lot. That was probably about 10 minutes, right? Okay, listen, it's so much in that. Okay, so, see, this goes back to what we were talking about, how these leaders don't believe that there is systemic racism within their police departments. They think obviously, I don't believe that they believe that all people are perfect or all cops are perfect. I get that. But what I'm saying is that, this is what makes this acceptable when when leaders don't see that racism, institutionalized racism, is in your community. These are the things that can happen when cops can sit around and begin to talk about, using the N-word, and allowing you to hear their hatred for other people. And it's just being recorded. And see, here's the thing. I don't believe this is the first conversation that whoever did the reporting, I don't believe this is their first time ever hearing those type of conversations. I just don't believe it. I believe because of this spark with the George Floyd, now everybody's feel like they have to play their part, and that's what I believe. And now it's coming out, And here's the thing, one guy sparked about a race war. Yeah. Can you believe this? And see, this is the thing that gets me. These individuals come with a purpose when they set their minds on becoming a police officer. And see, but this, they know exactly what they're trying to do. And see, here's my thing, what makes it even stronger to me is that these police officers, I guarantee you, do not live within that community, don't even have to probably even go into the community. Why do you have to hate something so much that you don't even have to be a part of, even if you don't want to? Just for the remarks that were made, slaughter all of them. I'm preparing for a race war. Why? Why are you preparing for this? It's that hate. It's bigger. It's not the police officer. It's the person who puts on the suit. You know what I mean? The police officer, that like a judge, or they represent that power. That position, just like a police officer. So it's not the police officer, it's the person who steps into the police officer suit. You get what I mean? Because of the authority behind that police officer suit, I can be as racist as I want to be. And for years, no one ever, people got away with, violent racist crime, meaning police officers towards Black people. They got away with it. And for them to have the attitude, and see, here's the thing, right? I guess they were asked, why did you why come up with this stuff? Why talk about this? Well, it was just, we were so stressed out. Wait a minute. So in your stress, the first thing you can do, the first thought that comes across your head is to talk about or use the N-word, slaughter people, race war. That's what happens. Is that what happens? And I'm ready for it. What do you mean you're ready for it? To be ready, that means you had to plan something out. You had to already know something was going to happen, or you were going to play a part of something to happen, so this thing will happen. You get what I mean? Those are, if you, that's just, I mean, that's enough right there. I think sometimes these leaders need these videos just played back in front of their face so that they can actually see and hear what we're hearing. And it may even get misinterpreted even then. Right. So, I mean, it's just, I'm thinking that it's crazy. And the police officers never even denied it. I mean, what is this? It goes to show you who, or the potential of who's behind the badge, what type of people, or what they can do to cause great harm. Listen, one officer that took down Floyd, George Floyd, Derek Chauvin. This one officer, he is the reason that the chaos broke out the way that it did. One officer cost, or I would say caused damage into millions and probably even billions of dollars, or hundreds of millions. I'm talking about all over the country or the world, from one police officer. See, look at the power that they have and the chaos that they can cause. So we have to look at this systemic racism situation, this problem, and we have to address it before it becomes worse or get worse. Guys, I just don't know. And last but not least, there's a video, and some might know, and speaking of Derek Chauvin, it's some officers, and I'm going to prompt this video so we can watch it as well. But there's some officers that I'll just let you hear it in the correction officers. Eight correction officers of color say they have been portrayed pretty much from guarding Derek Chauvin. I mean, we get it because they were black and they could do something to him. But let's listen to it right now.
8 correctional officers of color are suing Ramsey County for discrimination. An attorney representing the officers says they were prohibited from entering or working on the floor where former MPD officer Derek Chauvin was being held. The attorney spoke about the lawsuit against the county this morning.
Right now, our community, our state, and our country are grieving the senseless death of George Floyd and far too many other people of color. Many of us are using this moment to examine and take a closer look at racism and the small and large systemic injustices facing our neighbors of color. Unfortunately, we're here today to bring light to another example of prejudice and discrimination, this time in the workplace. On Friday, May 29th, 8 correctional officers of color went to work at Ramsey County Jail, which is right here behind me, expecting to do their jobs. However, they were prevented from doing so when former police officer Derek Chauvin arrived at the jail that afternoon. Upon his arrival, Superintendent Leiden ordered that all the correctional officers of color were to be prohibited from guarding Chauvin or going anywhere on the 5th floor where he was to be held. This decision was made solely because of the color of the officer's skin. We're here today because 8 individuals who were impacted by this decision were brave enough to come forward. It was not easy, and it still isn't easy. Out of fear of retaliation, they've made the difficult decision to remain anonymous today. They're fearful of losing their jobs and livelihood and putting their families at risk. My clients are kind, fiercely loyal, passionate people who care deeply about each other and about their job. And the deliberate discriminatory treatment they received from Ramsey County on May 29th has left them feeling broken. This morning, I'll share a brief overview of the events at Ramsey County Jail, and then I'll take questions from reporters. On May 29th, officers of color were busily preparing the jail for Chauvin's arrival when they were informed in various ways that they would be reassigned away from any task requiring them to be on the 5th floor of the jail where Chauvin was to be held. For example, 2 of the officers of color were tasked with cleaning the 5th floor to prepare for Chauvin's arrival, which involved removing urine and other unsanitary waste. When the cleaning was done, they were hastily reassigned away from the 5th floor once Chauvin arrived. One acting sergeant was stopped in the middle of booking Chauvin by the superintendent himself, who told the sergeant he did not want the sergeant transporting Chauvin to his unit. One acting sergeant was stopped, several correctional officers of color were interrupted in the middle of responding to an emergency call and informed that they would not be permitted to complete the emergency procedure because it involved taking the inmate to the 5th floor. Another officer realized something was wrong because he was in the control room and noticed on the jail's cameras that all of the correctional officers of color were on the 3rd floor. These officers initially thought the interruption to their schedules was odd, but later learned it was no coincidence. Superintendent Leiden had issued an order prohibiting all employees of color from working on the 5th floor. At least one officer of color was also reassigned away from the 5th floor for her weekend shift on May 31st. I want to note that this was not a split-second decision, as the sheriff's office seems to be saying at this point. Superintendent Leiden shared his idea of segregating officers with one of his sergeants prior to issuing it. The sergeant, a person of color herself, informed Leiden that his plan was offensive.
Okay, so we won't just run the whole thing, but guys, you can go on YouTube and check that out as well. But I mean, listen to what's going on. Okay, so, here's these officers, haven't did anything wrong. Actually, they're serving, doing their jobs. This guy is out here killing. He's killing police officers. He's killing people or being racist. Even at that so-called club or that club where even I think that George Floyd and him both worked at or something. And they were even saying, employees were even saying that he was being racist towards people there as well. So this guy is a known racist to some people and obviously a killer. But these officers are going to work, doing their job every day, trying to be, great citizens or whatever. But you understand what I'm saying? And here, this guy does the killing, but yet it's switched around as though these officers have done something wrong and this guy is innocent and hasn't did anything wrong. I mean, can you believe it? See, now, can I add and say that this is part of systemic racism? Maybe I can. But the fact that, they also can think, and don't think I don't get it, because I do get it. I do understand. But would you have done it if it was turned around? Would you have done it? If this guy had killed a black cop? No, if you get what I'm saying, if a white guy killed, if a black cop killed a white guy, do you think that they would put? No, I don't think they would. It doesn't matter. They would have put him, he would have still been processed by whatever officer that was available. But the fact that this guy is white, and they know that it's a possibility that, they can do whatever they want to do. I mean, I don't know. But see, here's the thing. You are supposed to have you should have known that my officers are professional, so they should be anyway. So I wouldn't have a reason to think that they would treat him any other way but in a professional manner. Are you saying that these men and women aren't professional, where they can do their job without personalizing it, I mean, what are you saying? So, but, it's just, there it is. We're even treated unfair within the force. You know what I mean? Or in the department. So, listen, I hope they get their lawsuit. I mean, he's going to run into someone black if he goes up into the system. Eventually, he's going to see someone of color. And I don't think it's something, or I don't think you can babysit this guy like that, because you're going to have to take your hands off him and take the bottle out of his mouth and the pamper. Maybe you change the pamper one more time. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is you're going to have to let him go sooner or later. But I'm saying is that, these officers shouldn't be disrespected that way. They shouldn't be disrespected that way. And that's what that is. You're disrespecting them because, and you don't trust your officers. Why did you hire them then? Why you should always be right. Isn't that what you guys say? Oh, systemic racism doesn't exist, within the police department. So if it doesn't exist, then why don't you allow these officers to do their job on the same floor that, that Mr. Chauvin is on? Guys, that's enough for me today. I'm out of here. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Roundtable Podcast. Go to our website, share and like, and we'll see you 4:30 every Sunday on the Roundtable Podcast. Peace. Talk to you soon. I'm out of here.